Welcome to Hopcast Half Pint, first one of 2019, the January 2019 edition. James here.
And I'm Adam, I'm here too.
And so tonight we've got a few bits of business to take care of. The Golden Hop Awards, which, considering the fact that we made them up a few days before we did the January Hopcast, I thought went all right.
Yeah, really good. We've got some interesting short list really for some of them.
Couple kind of out of the mainstream, which was good. So what happened is that obviously we opened the voting on that about a week ago, well, exactly a week ago from as we record this now. I did a tweet at the end of the first day just saying who was in the lead, and then I've not looked at the results at all. I've had a complete ban, which means I've had to turn off all notifications for our Twitter and everything. So Adam does know the final results, I don't. So we're going to have a bit of fun with that later on, see whether or not I can guess who I think will have won in each of those categories.
Yeah, and thanks for everybody who actually voted, because there was quite a lot of votes for that, and we really appreciate getting involved, so hopefully do some more things like that in the future.
Yes, so that'll be good. So we'll do that a little bit further down the line. For now, let's crack open a beer, and this is a beer that's been around for a while, but I've not had before.
Me neither.
So you brought this along. Do you want to tell us a bit about it?
It's Rhubarb Streisand by Brew York, which is a York brewery. It's a 5.5%.
It is, yeah.
What's it listed as? It's listed as a rhubarb milkshake pale. So in my head, I thought it was going to be like a sour beer until I read it. It's probably going to be quite sour.
It's described as tart, deliciously tart yet creamy, big-bodied milkshake IPA, rammed with rhubarb and just a smidge of fiery ginger. A smidge. There's also a quote from... no, it's not. I was going to say a quote from Barbara Streisand. It's not. It just says, woo, 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 Barbara Streisand. I'm guessing that's the...
Is that something?
how's it go?
Duck soup or something?
Barbara Streisand. Anyway.
Yeah.
You know the one.
Yeah. Well, I kind of picked this as my sort of Tryanuary beer. Because I mentioned it last podcast, I don't like people faffing around with the style too much. And as much as I like my IPAs and pale beers, you start putting funky things in it, and I might avoid it. But I quite like something tart, like a bit of...
Sorry, that's not the best pour in the world. I apologise for that.
But yeah, it looks slightly hazy, kind of what you would expect from a pale ale. So I think. Let's see what it smells like. I can smell it actually. Sorry.
You can really smell it. So we know that Laura's a big fan of Brew York, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's talked about them a few times,
yeah.
but I don't think we've done any of their beers before. I have had a couple because I think they've recently brought out another couple of beers, including I think there was a double dry hop IPA they brought out a few weeks back, or that recently has been kind of knocking around.
I think they did one of the collaboration beers that Abbeydale did as well recently, from that new series with the cool artwork. But yeah, they've got a big new sort of brewery at the tap room, which I think has something like 50 keg lines on, something like that.
Wow.
So if you're in York, probably something worth searching out.
Yeah, absolutely. So what about Tryanuary then? Anything that you've tried in the last few weeks that has blown your mind or disgusted your mind?
Well, I've not really had too much since the last episode. I have been to Barcelona, so I've maybe been trying some more sort of beers from the brew pubs that are out there. So that's my kind of Tryanuary. It's Tryanuary Brewery. So I'm going for there were black IPA from a brewery out there called Black Lab, which is a 6% black IPA, which is really good. I think it's a style that we're not really seeing much at the minute, a black IPA. I think it was quite fashionable a few years ago, and I think it's its days have kind of been numbered. But it's nice to see someone bringing one out. It was good.
It's a little bit middle of the road, isn't it? Interesting though, I noticed the Colonel have brought out a black. I think that's a black. It might even be a black IPA, a India black ale or something. Anyway, I noticed they've kind of recently brought out one of a similar style. Interestingly, on that subject, because the next two beers that we're going to have are both new breweries. So that's kind of good that we're kind of trying a few. The one kind of thing that I've had that's been a bit out of my comfort zone, which is it's a bit strange saying this because I'm quite into sours, but it's by a brewery called Little Earth Project, relatively new, tend to do quite unusual things, and it was their hedgerow mix. And that's kind of a sour, but sort of quite unusual flavours, and it was kind of a more what your classes would be the more traditional sour rather than being kind of the modern sort of kettle, perhaps slightly more artificial tasting sour. It was very kind of back to basics, which was actually maybe a little bit too much for me. Which I wouldn't expect to kind of say about a sour, but it was just a little bit. By the time my palate had adjusted to it, I'd pretty much finished it.
Right, I think they exclusively do sour beers.
Yeah.
They're based in Suffolk, I think. It's
all right.
Near Sudbury, I think. But yeah, they've got a little sort of outfit that comes out of a bit of a pub down there, so I think you can stay there. They've got sort of things you want to go down and try them. But I've had a few of theirs, but they don't travel very far. I've only ever seen the odd one or two bottles up north.
Yeah, there seems to be becoming a little bit more of a thing now. One of my local beer shops, which is Wine Rack on Charleville Road, they've started stocking 2 or 3 of their beers. So I think when you start seeing them in places like that, then they're obviously trying to go kind of much more national. So I guess that you probably will see them more often, which is quite good. This really reminds me of those rhubarb and custard sweets.
Yeah, I am drinking out of a plastic glass or a plas.
A plas.
It's a sort of beer festival glass as well.
It is. It's from the Vegan Beer Fest 2017, which was at those, what's it called, like Yellow Arch
Studios.
That was really good. Didn't manage to get to it last year, but the 2017 one was excellent.
So what I was going to say is that because it's out of a plastic kind of beaker and it's quite sweet, it's kind of made me feel like I'm taking back to childhood a little bit. But it's nice though. It's a little bit sweet. It's not as tart as I were expecting it to be. I think that's the milkshake kind of lactose sort of element to it, which...
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm particularly getting the milkshakey sort of
I think that's what's softening it for me, I think, maybe.
But it's nice. Let's talk about some news then. Not a huge amount happening in January, obviously. It's a bit slower for breweries and stuff like that. But in terms of a little bit of kind of local beer festival news, some good, some less good. So let's start with the good news, Indie Beer Feast, which is coming up at the beginning of March.
Yeah.
And actually, it will be here before we know it. And I know you've been kind of keeping an eye on announcements and stuff.
Yeah, they've been slowly releasing different breweries, because like if anybody went last year, or I heard about it last year, but there's independent brewery bars rather than like one bar that stocks loads of beers. So it's a really good opportunity to go down and basically talk to the brewers, talk to the staff who work there, maybe try a selection of their beers. So this month, a couple of days ago, they've just announced that Neptune Brewery from Liverpool have joined the list. Have you had any Neptune brewery beers?
I've got to be honest, I don't think I've heard of them. So are they relatively new or just kind of making the first steps into the...
I'm not entirely sure. I've definitely had one of their beers at the Sunfest in the summer, and I remember thinking it was like a really good beer. So it's probably one of those ones that be like the try a new brewery thing. I'll kind of look out for. So there is a list, quite an extensive list who was there at a minute. So I'll just run through some of those. Got Abbeydale, Black Iris from Nottingham, Blackjack from Manchester, Cloudwater, which is quite a good pull.
I don't think they weren't there last year.
No, so that's a good one. Magic Rock and Lost Industry and Elusive, or was it Elusive? Were there last year?
I think so.
And then some of the ones like Neep's End, local brewery, North Brewing again, went last year. And then we've got our newest brewery, which we talked a little bit about last month, and we'll be talking a little bit about later, which is St Mars of the Desert. Laura's favourite Torside will be back. Thornbridge will be back. And Wander Beyond from Manchester, which they're making quite a bit of noise this year.
Yeah, they are.
And then there's a New Zealand beer collective, which will feature 2 breweries from New Zealand, which is 8 Wide and Eastie Boys.
So some good stuff there.
Yeah, there's plenty to be going on there.
Interesting that I can't remember if with Neep's End there last year.
Neep's End were no,
because it was very very keg orientated last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's not to say that it might not be this time, but if you've got a brewery like Neep's End who traditionally, or I think, do they exclusively only brew cask?
No, they do keg.
Right.
I'm not sure they do any. They don't do as much of it. So you kind of have to be in a pub that probably does stock their beers, but also does keg beers, and they do kind of attract more of a cask audience. So,
you just wonder, with the way things have gone over the last 12 months, it wouldn't be unusual for something like this now to have kind of a few cask lines there. It's all right for keg drinkers to drink cask again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cloudwater have made it cool again.
Oh yeah.
So
they've saved it.
Maybe we'll see. Last year, I can only really remember. I think was it Thornbridge that had a dry hop version of something? Was it dry hop dry pour that was on cask?
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty much
I think
the only
Aberdale
cask
did some, but it wasn't hand pulled. It was kind of like the gravity poured. You release the tap kind of thing.
So that could be interesting. That could give it a slightly different feel. Great, they've got Cloudwater going. We were kind of singing its praises, weren't we, a year ago, Indie Beer Feast. We did a special episode from there, which was comical due to the fact that both of us got absolutely hammered and had a brilliant time.
We weren't together,
we were kind of separate, and by the end, we're doing these kind of really embarrassingly slurry interviews. But I think that just shows the fact that the beer was good. It was a great venue, so I'm really pleased about that.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
That's come together really well.
That. It should be good again.
If you want to track down tickets, it's actually pretty easy. Just do a Google search, Indie Beer Feast, you'll find it really easily. Plenty on Twitter as well. And looking forward to that. Some less good news locally, not necessarily just not inside Sheffield, but actually very close to Sheffield, which is the Rotherham Real Ale and Music Festival, which I don't know if it's one that you've been to very much.
I've been to it I've not been to it for a few years, but it's at Magna, which is the big old steel plant near Meadow Hall. Yeah. It's always traditionally been an absolutely massive festival. It used to be at Oakwood School in Rotherham.
Yeah, it did.
Massive place, different rooms for different regions and stuff. So before this kind of keg resurgence, that was a really impressive festival. But they put a quick message out on Facebook a couple of days ago saying that due to unforeseen circumstances, this year's festival has been cancelled, and it says hope to organise another festival in 2020. And it's not the first time they've done this in the last few years. I was
going to say, I remember this happening. I think it happened when they were at the school, didn't it? And then it ended up obviously moving to Magna, which is such a different venue, but worked quite well. So it's a shame, isn't it? It seems to be one that they've had a few difficulties over the years, kind of keeping it going and keeping it on. And from our point of view, we're kind of Sheffield focused, but Magna could not be much closer to the border, really, could it? And you jump on the whatever it is, the X bus, X69, and it drops you off literally outside. So it's you can walk it from Meadowhall, I would think. Yeah. So one that's really easy to get to, and a shame that's not going to happen. But they have said they want to. It's not the end. They're hoping to get things back up and running in 2020.
Yeah.
I can't get my head around the fact that that's next year. 2020 still to me sounds like that's years away yet. All right. We talked a little bit a month ago about a new brewery that was setting up, and we're talking about it quite a little bit blindfolded because we didn't know a lot about it. We were speculating a little, and that is St. Mars of the Desert. Since then, both of us have met Dan and Martha, who are the people behind the brewery. We popped along to see them. They were doing a little Meet the Brewer event at the temporary pop-up hop hideout near to the Peace Gardens, which was upstairs in a bookshop, which was brilliant. Really good to meet them and chat. And I know that plans are coming along now. You've been along to the brewery, so you talk about that in a second. But for now, we've actually got one of their beers that we're going to try. Yeah,
they've only done a couple of beers. These two are a couple of ones that they've got on. They've bottled and they've been putting on at their tap room. I think it's pronounced Cito.
Cito, I guess, yes. Cito, I guess it's Citra, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a 4% hoppy pale beer. I was kind of drinking the other one that they had on, which is the Lupo. It's a bit stronger. I thought we should try this one out, see what we think. And I've got a feeling that's the one. The Lupo is the one that we tried when we met them as well. So, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. So this is... I like their packaging, by the way. It's 4%. Cito. It's a hoppy pale beer. Simple and lovely. Brewed with Ooh, now I'm not even going to try and pronounce those.
Looks like it's Savinski and Sars hops. I think they're kind of, well, they're like Czech hops, or there's some European. They're European hops, aren't they?
So yeah, we've both met Dan and Martha. There's a fascinating story behind this brewery, and genuinely, you kind of go along to some of these little kind of meet the brewer things and sort of thing. Well, you just talk a bit about brewing beer. Their kind of story about how they ended up setting up in Attercliffe, which you kind of, even if you're based in Sheffield to start with and you end up opening a brewery in Attercliffe, you kind of go, oh God, how did you end up there? They're from, is it Boston?
Yeah, they're from Boston. Yeah, they've been brewing together as a couple for about 10 years, and Dan has in total been brewing for 25 years on his own. I don't really kind of want to give too much away about the whole story, because I think we might sort of do something about it in the future, but it's just kind of an interesting, unusual, kind of quite just like a fun sort of little weird story. And
it's very unique. And I mean, it was fascinating listening to them telling us the story. The reason that we don't want to give too much away is because we want to go up and do a one-off episode up there. We want to meet them properly. We want to get their story. We want to do it as a special one-off podcast. So obviously we want you to listen to that, which is why we're not going to give away the full story. Other than to say it's really fascinating, and they, we won't talk too much about where, but they like literally travelled the world. Looking at loads of different locations, like countries all over Europe, all over the place, all over America, and settled on Attercliffe in Sheffield being the place. Neither of them are from Sheffield, but this is where they ended up picking to be the home for their brewery and tap room. But we will hopefully get them to kind of tell you the full story of all the places that they looked at and why they ended up heading there. So I'm right thinking the tap room's not kind of fully opened yet.
It's something that they're opening as and when they think it seems fit, because they're a 2-person operation. Apparently they're only the only brewery in Sheffield to have their own bottling line.
Right.
Which is interesting.
It is interesting.
All the labels and stuff are done by Martha in a kind of like a screen printing sort of thing, so that's kind of a time-consuming operation as well. So I suppose they're opening up as and when they've got time, and as and when they think that suits people. So I went up. They did 2 like sort of short, couple of hour openings last week. So I went last Thursday. We're opening 5 or 7. Dan showed us around the brewery. It's a nice, smart-looking kit. Told me what things did, and I'm not quite sure what it meant, but I just nodded and approved. And then because it was quite quiet on the Thursday, I basically had their attention all night, just having a chat. They've got a very small little tap room, just running 2 beers at the minute. It's quite quaint and cool. It's kind of painted walls, and they've used all the branding that they've used on it's got this quite distinctive typeface on it. They painted it all up, and they had a little record player just playing old 50s rock and roll stuff in the corner and stuff. So it's like nicely lit and stuff. You do have to make a proper effort to get there. And me and my 2 friends who we got a taxi out there. The taxi driver was really unsure where the hell we were going. he said he thought we were going to work, but it could have been going to some dodgy little.
The address on the bottle is kind of alright, just at 90 Stevenson Road. Sheffield S9. I guess you just say that to your taxi driver rather than saying Attercliffe, middle of nowhere.
Well, we Uber. I just dropped a pin on that street and I said we're looking for this thing. And luckily they had one of the A-frames outside, but it was a black A-frame in the dark.
Right.
I think that's it. Then I saw they've got some nice kind of coloured lights, and it's set back from the road, so you wouldn't naturally see it. But I'm sure as kind of things move on and they open more, it's such a good thing. There were a couple of people in there who both said, like, could you hire this place out for like a private function? And they were a bit like, can't see why not. Yeah. So even if I think it's got a capacity of about 25 people. So it's that kind of level.
That's going to be cosy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's great,
and
honestly, the absolute best of luck to them, because I probably, when we talked about it a month ago, probably thought they'll probably be here and gone in 6 months, and it's not going to work out. But listening to the story and finding out more about them and how determined they are to make a success of it, my opinion's completely changed. And lovely people, and just something different as well, and great to have a couple of people that are doing something that little bit different in what's such a congested sort of beer marketplace now. That really sort of stands out. So the best of luck to them. What do you think to the beer though? That's the big question.
The beer is similar to a little bit. They've got quite a distinct style where it's not trying to be anything like on either side. It's quite down the middle. It does have a nice traditional hoppy taste. It's probably a similar taste to when we had the Acorn one last month, where it's that kind of, it's traditional but not really in a kind of old-fashioned way. It's quite
no, it's got a little
kind of
contemporary edge to it. It's very clean, very crisp tasting. I like that. What I like is that as you kind of drink through it, it's not kind of too clangy or anything in your mouth. It's really kind of refreshing and nice. And for 4%, it's got a good bit of taste behind it.
Yeah, it's got quite a good strong flavour for 4%.
Yeah, it really has. One other kind of thing that we want to talk about, which is sort of local but applies to you pretty much wherever you are, and that is Brewdog, who we don't talk about all that often, to be honest. We've had a couple of their beers before, but the Brewdog pub in Sheffield is still one of my favourite places to go. I'm always guaranteed to find some really good beers in there, and they're doing something a bit different.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably going along with the Tryanuary kind of thing. It is a national thing, but obviously Sheffield having its own Brewdog. They're doing Sourfest 2019, which I think it runs from today or yesterday, so day of recording, this 15th of January, and it's running for a week and a half, and they're dedicating 30% of all their taps to sour beers. So if you're still not really into sour beers or you want to try something, you know that they've got quite a lot of lines in there, quite a lot of keg lines, so I imagine what that is probably, 5, 6, 7 keg lines possibly, if they're using all of them. They've got quite a lot in there, so
probably is. I always notice the fact that if you go to one of the bigger Brewdogs kind of elsewhere in the country now, and there aren't many cities that don't have one, but I end up in the Birmingham Brewdog quite a lot, because it's so close to New Street, and obviously that's quite a big one. When you go in the Sheffield one now, the number of beers that they have on, you kind of think, oh god, this is tiny. And actually for any normal pub, it's a huge number of beers that they have on there, but for a Brewdog pub, it's a tiny bit limited. And I always just kind of think it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we find out that Brewdog have acquired a new site in Sheffield and then move into something like 2-3 times as big as what they've got
possibly
now, because it is quite small for a Brewdog site nowadays, isn't it?
I think I'm not sure it's one of their ones that has done quite as well as historically when it's opened. I think some of the bigger cities have had more of a liking for it, but I think it's coming along. It is in a bit of an area where it's more of a trendy area to drink, I suppose, where you've got more less ale-y kind of things. But I think as like the craft market has caught up a bit, and Brewdog have always kind of called themselves that sort of thing, then it's starting to blend in a lot more than it did a few years ago.
We'll see. It sounds good. I'll probably pop along and have a few. Right, one more beer that we're going to have, and this is another new brewery. So this is a brewery called Salt, who are from West Yorkshire, unsurprisingly from Saltaire. And I'm saying that as I desperately try and find Saltaire. And there's been a little bit of a buzz about these, because I don't tend to get involved with too much kind of beer talk on Facebook and in different groups and stuff. But I kind of have a look and just see there's been a few people chatting about Salt, who launched back end of 2018 quite successfully by all accounts. And they've got a couple of beers out at the moment. This is called Alpaca. It's a double dry hop IPA at 6.6%. It's described as aromatic and citrusy. And then at the back it just says "Standing on the Shoulders of Giants," which is an Oasis album, is it? Or
it is,
Oasis
I think
single?
they've taken it from something as well. But,
great. So I'm looking forward to trying this. Heard good things about it. It's got an amazing smell.
Yeah, it's kind of unusual because Saltaire Brewery rebranded as well recently, and some of their stuff doesn't look that dissimilar to theirs. Makes you wonder whether that was intentional or not. But yeah, I've seen a few of these about. I've not had one yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing what it tastes like. I do quite like the can design. It's got that kind of honeycomb pattern on it. It looks like from a distance it looks like it's textured.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the can design's it's nice, quite simple.
Yeah, quite simple. Yeah.
Quite sort of straightforward branding. Probably a bit more in there. Right, this brings us then to Golden Hop Awards.
Drum roll.
So can't do a drum roll because I haven't got any drums, but there we go. Just showing the camera the can design of the salt. If you didn't know, by the way, you can see the video of the half pint every month. Not at the same time because it takes us a couple of days to get around to and bother to edit it, doesn't it? But right, okay. So this is where I can't look at your sheet.
Yep.
So we had, was it 5 categories altogether?
5 categories, yeah.
5 categories in the end.
So we had best national brewery and best local brewery, separate ones.
Mm-hmm.
Best local venue, best event, and best overall beer, which is like I think we stated it had to be a national beer. So,
yeah, rather than international. Okay, so which are we looking at first?
Best national brewery. So just to remind everybody which the four was Verdant, Burning Sky, Northern Monk, and Wylam. So basically, what we did in the last episode, for those who maybe not got to that one yet, is we all each picked, 4 of us all picked our favourite of that year, and we put these 4 through to Twitter.
Yeah.
So Twitter got a week to vote on what they thought was the best for each of these ones, and the results came in this afternoon.
Okay, so I don't think that Burning Sky will be kind of mainstream enough.
Okay.
I think that Verdant, although obviously they've had an amazing year, I think that they still appeal to quite a small niche part of the market that really like those proper juice bomb beers. So I suspect it's going to be between Northern Monk and Wylam, purely because Wylam is the one that I put forward. I'm going to say that I think that they will have just about done it.
Well, Wylam actually came third.
Oh, wow.
So in 4th place was Verdant with 13%.
Right.
In 3rd place was Wylam with 23%. In 2nd place was Burning Sky with 29%.
Right.
Which is quite impressive. So the winner was, probably not surprisingly actually, is Northern Monk with 36% of the votes.
A fair winner. Yeah, as I said, I thought it'd be between them and Wylam. So surprised that Burning Sky actually came in second. So well done to them. That's good. I think it's nice when these things kind of prompt a bit of a surprise.
It's not the only one that surprised me actually. Just generally, as looking through them. So probably not all going to be as expected. So keep that in mind.
All right.
So well done to Northern Monk.
Congrats.
Your trophy's in the post.
Yeah. Gloss over that.
Right, so let's go to best local brewery. So again, there was a few people who kind of liked the similar ones. So to be fair, we branched out a little bit and we put a few extra ones in.
Mm-hmm.
Not a few extra ones, but one extra one in. So we had Neep's End, Loxley, Lost Industry, and Abbeydale.
I can't really see past Abbeydale winning this. I would think that Neep's End probably did pretty well. I think it'll have been Abbeydale 1, Neep's End 2.
Yeah, that's correct.
All right.
I think in 4th place had Lost Industry with 10%. Loxley in a respectable 3rd place for a new brewery, quite a traditional brewery, with 14%. Neep's End only just pipping it with 16%. So Abbeydale won it with a massive 60% of the votes. So
gosh, that's landslide. You can't argue with that, and I know that we're always a little bit like it's. We've got Laura, who obviously she works at Abbeydale, so we've got kind of like unofficial connections. So I think we always just try and not ham up Abbeydale too much, but you can't deny what an amazing year that they've had.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence that we've started a podcast with it and they've had such a good year, and so that's well done to Abbeydale. Okay, your trophy's in the post as well. So let's move to best local venue.
You've got to stop saying that. It might be legally binding.
Okay, let's get it. So best local venue.
Right.
So the nominees were Shakespeare's, Rutland, Bar Stewards, and Itchy Pig.
All right, this is really difficult because Bar Stewards is the one that I nominated, and it was. I think all of those venues have real value. The reason that I picked Bar Stewards is because I spent a lot of time there during the summer, so I had a lot of memories. But I also think the beer that they do is always absolutely brilliant. But that's not to say that particularly Shakespeare's and Rutland aren't brilliant. I reckon it'll have come down to a fight between those two, between Shakespeare's and Rutland. I can imagine both of them getting a little bit involved on Twitter and it becoming a real battle between the two. The only factor that I can put into this is similar to you in terms of the fact that obviously working in Sheffield city centre, the Rutland's kind of become my local, so I've got to kind of just err slightly towards them.
Okay, well, we'll see then. So in fourth place was Bar Stewards with 16%.
Right.
Which I think I was quite surprised at that, but it is new, it is about the way, it's still, still finding its feet. So in third place was Itchy Pig with 18%. That's like 2 micro pubs in the top 4. And then in second place with 32%, it was Shakespeare's. So Rutland won it with 34%.
Wow!
So it was really tight.
2% in it.
2% in it, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So so well done to Rutland.
Not surprised that it's that close, because it is so difficult to pick between those two venues. And I think we've both had kind of discussions with people on Twitter over the last week who said, well, how come so and so didn't get nominated? And how come so and so didn't? And you're like, all right, well, I can kind of I'm clutching at straws, but I can give you like the tiniest of reasons as to why that place didn't quite get my nomination and that place didn't quite, because we've got so many good venues.
I mean, we could put lists on his arm, couldn't we? But
I don't think that anyone that is into beers in the same sort of way that, like, say, me or you is, that could really argue with the Rutland and Shakespeare's being kind of head and shoulders the best pubs in Sheffield. So I think it's great that it was those two that came top two.
Well done, Rutland. So fourth was best event. So this can span quite a lot of stuff.
This is really hard to guess.
This is hard because not all of us have all been to each one, and obviously listeners probably have different experiences and they've probably been to different ones. So the nominees for this one were Indie Man, Manchester, Funk Fest, which is the Abbeydale Sour Beer Festival, Hop City, which is a Northern Monk kind of hoppy city thing, and Fine Fest, which is run by Fine Ales, which is up in Scotland.
Right. This is difficult, right? I don't think that it will be Fine Fest because I don't think it will be Funk Fest, because I think that was quite small.
Yep, quite
and I think you're only probably going to vote for that if you went to it. I think Hop City. I don't know. I don't think it will be Fine Fest because it was a little bit out of the way. I'm trying to think what do I think the majority of our audience will have gone to, or will have been the one that more of our audience have been to. So I think it's probably Indie Man.
Okay. So in fourth place was Hop City.
Right.
Which I was actually surprised
at.
I thought it was quite trendy and it's quite good. In third place was Funk Fest. So Hop City had 10%, which is quite significantly bottom actually. Third place was Funk Fest with 23%.
Right.
Second place, Indie Man with 32. So Fine Fest won it with 34%.
Wow. Well done.
They've got some friends on Twitter, aren't they? Bashing the buttons.
Yeah, well, I know it is a real big festival, and I know it's grown quite a lot over the years because it's quite established. It's been going for a while, hasn't it? It's not certainly not a new thing. It looks beautiful
from what I've seen as well. Like I've seen something when Laura's been and stuff. So yeah, well done to Fine Fest. Maybe it's something we could potentially do one year.
Yeah, we should do that.
Yeah. So finally, best beer. So we picked 4 beers that we'd all kind of thought were brilliant in the last year. And we ended up with Torside Rochewein, which was Laura's vote, Wylam Midnight Train to Biker, which is mine, Abbeydale Huckster, which was yours, and Wonder Beyond Octopod, which Al from Bar Stewards chose.
I don't think it will be the Torside beer. I'm not sure many people out there will have had that. I don't think it will be the Wonder Beyond. I think it's between Huckster and the Wylam. I suspect the Wylam will have been a little bit strong for some people, and so for 2 reasons. So for that reason, and also the fact that it was just a bloody good beer, I've got a pump for Huckster.
Okay, let's see if they get a second award of the night. So in fourth place was Wonder Beyond with Octopod with 17%. Torside Rochewein with 20%. Second was Wylam with Midnight Train to Biker for 30%, and Abbeydale Huckster with 33%. So it's a second win for Abbeydale.
I'm absolutely delighted about that.
It was a brilliant beer.
It was a fantastic beer, and I know we think we spent an entire episode just sat here going, it's great this, isn't it? And it could this.
Yeah.
But it was. It just was.
It was the one beer this year that I was upset when I couldn't get it anymore. I know. And I really went for as many cans as I could get when I could get them as well. So yeah.
When I put the nominations onto Twitter, and I found the beer labels for them all. When I found the Huckster one, there's a bit inside me that just went, oh. Yeah. So yeah, that's great then. So wins for Northern Monk, for Fine Fest, for Abbeydale twice, and for Rutland. I think they're very worthy winners.
Yeah, well done.
Couple of surprises in there, which is great, and some just rewarding some really good really good events, really good venues, really good beers.
If anybody who has started listening to podcasts more recently, episode 2 of the original one, we are at the Rutland, so you can interview about that in there.
Yep.
And Huckster, we featured on an earlier episode of the Half Pint where we raved about that. I think it might have been episode 1 or 2, possibly.
I think it's probably 2, yeah.
So yeah, if you want to...
It was definitely 2, because 1 is where we did
all the Wylam beers.
Yeah, I can't remember what we called it. It's basically where we were basically like
pilot
drooling on my kitchen floor by the time we finished it. Okay, so last thing for us to do is just wrap up with the beer that we've been having, Salt Alpaca.
Yeah,
But nice. I think alpaca is a brilliant word. I just like the way that it sounds.
Punchy in it.
Double dry hop IPA. There's a hell of a lot of flavour going on there. I'm just trying to find out what hops we've got going on. It doesn't actually mention the hops that are in it. But it's underlying citrus and tropical notes is what it describes. Yeah, I like it actually. I think it's really nice.
Bitterness, nice aroma, nice flavour. Yeah, it's good, quite well round. It doesn't taste too. Well, actually, probably tastes about its strength, 6.6%.
Yeah, 6.6 in this kind of day and age doesn't seem that strong, does it? It's like, oh, it's below 7. It's have a couple of those. Yeah, good beer actually. I think all 3 of those beers we've had tonight have been really, really good. Yep. Pick a favourite. I probably just lean. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to say Smod. Because it's 4% and it had a lot of flavour for 4%. I actually think probably the Salt is the better beer, but just because of the fact that at 4% you can easily have a couple of bottles of that and be fine.
So that's SMOD is the abbreviation for the
yeah, it is.
St Mars of the Desert. So if you ever SMOD, that's what they're talking about. I think I might have got that as well. I really like that, and I really like the other one that I had three quite quick pints of at the brewery. So very, very, very quaffable beers. So yeah, go check them out.
Good stuff. Right, we've gone way over our normal time, so sorry about that, but obviously we've got the awards and everything to do. We will be back. I think we'll probably be a little bit later next month because we're doing the main Hopcast a little bit later because it is our first ever Valentine's special. I don't know what that means, but it probably means we're going to have to buy presents for each other or something. Or
do it candlelit.
I don't know. So we could do that. So we could arrange to do it candlelit. So we're heading to the New Barrack Tavern on Penistone Road out towards Hillsborough, and yeah, we're going to be doing that around Valentine's Day. We're not doing it on Valentine's Day. I think we've all got better stuff to be doing on Valentine's Day than recording a podcast. Well, you lot do.
I don't think
so. That means that the Half Pint will probably be a week or so after that, so just a little bit later next month. And yeah, we will speak to you then.
See you next month.